love all the personality profiles, and I just think they're a hoot to learn about people's personalities. You, on the other hand, talk about your feelings on
Wow.
Myers-Briggs and all of that.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with personality profiles. I know myself. I've taken, a bunch of different ones. Myers-Briggs comes to mind. You and I think, have one letter in common. You're an
That sounds right.
ENFP and I'm an ISFJ. So we have the F in common, which I think is feeling. And don't
Yeah.
ask me what that means, but you're an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I'm
Mhm.
analytical. You're the wow, let's
Funky.
face it, you're the
Yes,
idea
funky.
person,
Yep.
all of those things. The last company that we worked with was big on personality profiles to the point I thought that they went a little bit too far.
Right.
I felt like they stymied people. "Oh, you're an ISFJ, so you could never do, this job," or, that
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I do have a love-hate relationship with those. But if we're gonna talk about how different you and I are,
Yes.
you are, the idea person, you don't like the details. I am the one who tries to figure out how to make a big idea work. If it's going to
Yes.
work, I poke
Yep.
holes. Not really poke holes because I don't want to sound like a
Yeah, it's never
Debbie
negative the way.
Downer. Yeah,
Yeah, and you're not. I mean, that's a particular skill that I appreciate about you is that even if I say, Patty, let's do a cross country road trip, which I actually have proposed. I mean, Gail and Oprah did it. Why couldn't we do it?
there you go.
In a camper, no less. Patty would rather be
Mhm. I'm not sure about
in an
that.
RV, which I don't understand because they're so stinking cute. I totally want one. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
But, I think we complement one another. I think there always needs to be somebody who has the big idea and somebody walking alongside them saying, okay, tell me more about that. So, just to give an example, remember last night, Meg and I share a Keep board, Google Keep board, and we have a wrap up call almost every day where we talk about things that happened in each other's days and what we need to inform the other person of. And she had very cryptically written something. And I must have asked her 20 questions
Oh,
about it,
yeah.
and I said, "Is this annoying?"
And it is not. I don't realize the missing pieces. I assume if I just use word pictures and discuss it, and I'm very excited about it, that it's contagious, but you aren't caught up in the contagion of my excitement, and you continue to ask questions which really is beneficial for someone like me. It's not natural for me to consider those. And sometimes it's bit me in the bum when, I realized after the fact, wow, I didn't consider expense or the logistics or whatever.
I truly do think about how, and I want to get to where your idea is capitalized on, and sometimes talking through it like that helps us both to say, "Maybe not now," or
Right.
maybe we need to table that, or maybe it isn't such a great idea. But yeah, I get not anxiety, but a little bit of want to please. I'm a people pleaser, so I want to make your ideas happen, but
I
sometimes
love that.
it doesn't always work.
Like our Christmas party. Let's talk about that because I could tell on your face it was coming down to the wire. And Patty likes to know the plan. And I love that. In fact, I wonder if it's by greater design that a large majority of my good friends and people that I'm close to tend to be more how related. And so when we were talking about our company Christmas party, it was coming down to the wire. And do you want to talk about
Yeah.
how that transpired?
So I want it to be beautiful and wonderful, but I'm always looking for the easy way to
Right.
do it. So I thought for a company Christmas party, find a place for about 20 people, find a place, a restaurant that had a room, easy enough. There's no decor to worry about, no
Clean up.
caterers to worry about. You just show up, they clean up, boom, done. But that's not what Meg had in mind. So she
I know, and you were a good sport about
Yeah,
it. I could
but,
tell from your
it
face.
ended up being beautiful and wonderful, and it
Yeah.
involved caterers, it involved finding people to clean up. There were a lot of little nuances. Working together, it was not that bad, but I was a little worried, I'm going
No
to
kidding.
admit.
Yeah, no kidding. I think anybody in that situation with, who's more a planner, more the how would have been. And I wanted a venue that was historic in nature and had some entertainment factor. So we found a place and it ended up working out. But yeah, I knew it was more work for my team and you tackled it. And I think the night went really well, except for the fact that the oil in the lamps was empty. And so our beautiful greenery wasn't the show pieces that I had hoped. So
Yeah, you're the
anyway,
only person that noticed, I'm sure.
so lucky. But yeah, they were delightful people anyway. So it's been my experience when I make sales calls and am on the phone speaking with potential new clients that they are hungry to understand best practices of how we see things done in staffing, in the staffing world. And the more I dig in, the more curious they are about everything from A to Z, because attorneys, particularly these days, aren't as connected as they once were. And I just thought there was value in looking at those relationships. And Patty is making the podcast happen because yeah, I would still be doodling a design of some type. Yeah. So,
Well,
and
Amy too. Amy is,
oh, Amy,
critical. Our marketing
amazing.
person, Amy, she has been politely nudging both of us, I would say,
Yeah.
in a great direction to make this happen. So kudos.
Amy is such a professional and has met tons of famous people. So there will be a lot of talk about famous people in this podcast. Unfortunately, I've met very few. I've only met the new kids on the block when I was a waitress in college. So. Okay. So what is the first question, Patty Cotter? I know I put you on the spot.
You wanted to know what is one less than desirable character trait I've seen a client overcome when we've gotten a placement just right. So, of course, micromanaging is a big one. And when a client insists on doing that, it develops feelings by the contractor of inferiority, inadequacy. I mean, they could be a professional practicing paralegal or legal assistant work for 20 years. But if you got an attorney who continues to kind of tell them how to do their job in an unnecessary way, then it does not make for a good partnership. So micromanaging is one, and then kind of a sister of micromanaging is inability to delegate. The mindset of it's easier to do it myself. We'll call that a syndrome, which is really, when you think about it, actually an attorney shying away from taking the necessary steps to train the pair or the legal assistant in the way that they like things done. It's, I don't want to say laziness, but kind of, you need to put in the effort to get the relationship the way that you want it. And sometimes, for whatever reason, clients aren't willing to do that. The last thing I would say is probably they think their person should be a mind reader.
Right.
Again, that
Yeah.
goes back to the training, spitting it out.
Communication.
How do you want this done? This is the way I do it. Oh, I want my T cross this way. Spell it out in the very beginning. So those are probably a few of the things that I
Good.
see
I had
that
a client a while back. I remember he shared that his last paralegal said he himself was his own best administrative assistant or, paralegal. He had such a hard time handing work off, but we were able to grow through it. And I think he really is happy as a result and appreciates that proactive partnership. But trust takes time, and we recognize that. So,
yeah, for sure.
what has a client shared or provided feedback on that made you better at your job? I keep putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I have experienced a couple of situations where I learned that I need to read between the lines. Early on, when I was doing discovery calls and listening to the attorney, and I'm thinking they're being maybe too particular about a certain
Right,
experience level that they need their paralegal to bring to the table. Because let's face it, you want to check most of the boxes, but you can't always do that. But what I learned was that attorneys are looking for paralegals or legal assistants that can fill in the gaps, the knowledge gaps that they have. So
right,
let's say they've been practicing for 10 years, they may want a paralegal who's been, practicing in that area for 20 years so that they
that's
can
right.
learn something. So I did early on learn to read between the lines when a client was being very specific about their needs.
Yes, and as you do with me, digging in to understand what the fear is or what the concern or experience that they've had before. Can you think of another instance with a client or a contractor, because most of our folks are contractors, that was a situation you weren't sure if it was going to work out and then it did?
We had placed contractor in a law firm in one part of the country, and I, knew she was a rock star, but this attorney group
Yep.
would pretty much, I'm going to say, ate her alive.
Yes. And this was a former federal prosecutor.
Yeah, and when I talk about causing feelings of inferiority and inadequacy, probably this particular contractor comes to mind. And so we quickly pulled her and realized that client really wasn't a fit for Woven Legal. We didn't want our contractors treated that way. So we did place her soon after with another client in another part of the country, and she thrived. I mean, within a month, they had her on their website.
Yes.
She couldn't have been happier. And of course, the feelings, kind of like being a proud mama,
No.
putting her in the right place where she could do her best work. She was so grateful. We were so happy. And actually, that attorney ended up buying out her contract. So,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
And I will have to go back and look at her picture on the website. That didn't occur to me. That same contractor ended up calling, or I think I called to check in with her, or maybe she called me. But regardless, we had a conversation where she said, and she got very emotional when she was describing it. She said, I've been waiting my entire career to be treated as if I knew what I was doing and trusted and treated with respect. And she said, I'm finally working in a way that I envisioned when I was becoming a paralegal. And she said, thanks for believing me when I said that I was working hard for that other firm and things didn't work out. And I loved that. I mean, that will be top 5 of all times moment, where you're just so stinking grateful that you do what you do. I mean,
Absolutely.
it was just a great conversation, and she's still somebody that we talk to on occasion. Let's see,
Yeah.
what would somebody be surprised to learn about you, Patti Cotter?
How about I'm more easygoing than I'm given credit for?
I would believe that. Yeah, absolutely.
So early in our marriage, my husband used to say I was type A. And I kind of believed him. He branded me that I was type A because I was neat, I was tidy, everything had its place, and I liked everything in its place.
Yep.
Couldn't believe him until probably later in our marriage, I realized, no, you're the one who's type A.
Really?
Yes. So the engineer came out of him of, I'd be cooking, and he didn't cook at the time. I'm training him, but he didn't cook at the time. And he said, "Are you sure you don't need to cut that up a little smaller or, do something a
Oh,
little
yeah.
differently?"
Oh,
And okay, you can't see my face on podcast,
yeah.
but
I'm
you saw my
dying.
face, but
Yes.
it's like, really?
Incredulous. Right?
Incredulous, yes. So
Yes.
I started teasing him that who was really the type A person?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I'm more easygoing then
Definitely are easygoing.
right.
I was surprised to learn that about you. I remember you asked if you could ride in my car one time, and I was like, not if in hurricane winds could you ride in my car, Patty. I am a sales rep at heart, and my car usually has some fast food bags in it, but not these days since I got a totally loaded Kia. It's still very clean.
Yeah, I think when I looked in your car, I didn't believe you. I'm like, oh, surely we can, move a few things. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Where's the seat?
And yeah, it may be it's a development area,
Yeah.
but but not now because the new has not worn off. The shine has not worn off the penny. Close to the vest is not something that I'm very, skilled at. Would they be surprised to know that I don't have a security clearance, maybe?
I know what they might be surprised about.
What?
You are an excellent writer and editor,
Oh, yeah, I do
and
writing.
you love doing that. So we have a person who does our blogs. We give the idea and kind of the framework, and she writes our blogs. And she's excellent, but that's one thing that's hard for you to give up. And the
It
reason
is.
it is because you are so good at it.
I enjoy it, but yeah, it is time consuming. And you've helped me so much with the delegation aspect of things. How do you feel about delegation, Patty? You and I have never really talked about that. When I worked for you, it was such a specified role when I was a relationship manager that there wasn't a lot that you could delegate. Was there?
No, not really. I would say that would be a development area for me, only because I like to do things for people.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if I'm delegating something, it's easier for me if it's something that I don't feel confident. I'm happy to delegate that to somebody who knows it better than I do. Now, if it's something I can do and something I'm good at, that's a little bit harder for me to delegate. Does that make sense?
It definitely does. And that rings so true in what I know about you. I was in advertising many years ago, worked for a large firm in Detroit, where my husband's from and where we lived for a time. And I remember I had a manager and I was over some aspect of this experiential training we were doing for our clients. And my boss asked me, Meg, I need to know right now how many blue hats, how many green hats, how many red hats do we have? And I knew it on the money. And he said, that was a test and you just failed. There's no way you should know that tiny detail. You've got to take a step back. You've got to let go of some things. And he was laughing with me. Fortunately, it wasn't terribly serious, but here I was, I think, really driving our group's assistant crazy. I had been in that role before. And
Hmm.
when I left and got a promotion, yeah, it was hard for me to give up ownership of that. And it was ego, and I find oftentimes for
Yeah.
me, if I don't want to delegate, it's me wrestling my own ego. You'll do it better. You could do it faster. And that, while that's true, it's not making the best use of my skills and time. And it can make it harder for the rest of the team. If I'm bogged down, I still play a large part in sales. And as a result, if I'm not selling and I'm focusing on other things, it will impact the growth of the company. So,
Yeah. I have another reason that people could find it hard to delegate, because I find myself doing this,
oh, yeah,
is if I've got a laundry list of things I need to do, I go with the easy sometimes rather than the hard or the labor intensive,
I get that.
something that I know that's going to take a long time. I like checking things off a list. So I'll go for
Yes,
that low hanging fruit.
right.
And then sometimes I'll see that thing getting pushed out and getting pushed out again and getting pushed out again, only to just do the little detail things that I know are going to be quick and easy and make my cup filled with checking a box. So I think that could be another reason, kind of procrastination, I guess, for
Yeah. But
not delegating.
you don't procrastinate for very long. I just know that from experience. The tension that it creates must be great enough for yourself because you're very disciplined. And actually, for me, as an entrepreneur, you're my partner, so you as an entrepreneur as well. I'm a big believer in riding other people's coattails because, well, I may be enough in the grand scheme, but I'm not enough to do this by myself. If I was left to my own devices, I would not be able to have the structure and discipline all by myself in a vacuum to get it done. I need the momentum and the accountability of other people to move business forward. And I'm a verbal processor. You
Yeah.
bear the brunt of that a lot because I like to talk through it, playing the tape forward. How do we think this is going to work out?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Oh, what's a funny story about us that would showcase our different strengths?
Oh, God.
Both of these have to do with our little Miami sales trip.
That was so fun.
The conversation got steered towards, are we going to get a fun car or are we going to get, you know, the four-door, whatever,
Sedan,
compact?
family. Yeah, family wagon.
Yeah. And somehow it came up with a convertible and you're like, we're in Miami, we're getting a convertible. It's like,
We're getting a convertible, Patty.
and I'm just sitting there going, okay, cha-ching.
Yep. And I'm like, oh, that's not that much money.
But we ended up in the convertible, and then on the trip, it was so dang hot. We did not want to put the convertible down. So that was kind of a fail until we did learn at the very end of that trip and that we could put the top down and still have the AC on. Not the most efficient, but
I think, yeah,
did end
that
up
was
taking advantage. But when we left the airport, Meg was like, we don't need to go on the freeway. Let's take the scenic route. And we took the scenic route through a neighborhood where there were bars on every window.
and a lot of pit bulls. I
And a
don't
lot
know
of
why.
pit bulls. Yes, chained in the yard. A little scary.
It was so scary. So our moment where we thought we were gonna put the top down, all of a sudden we're like putting it back up because yeah, it was too little too scary, and I'm a little rusty on my defensive tactics. So
Yeah, so I'm the what if, the cautious one, and Meg is fly by the seat of her pants.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh, what's the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
I'm so grateful for you because you tend to be more judicious. I am not risk averse. Even with this, with Woven Legal, I remember thinking, we'll probably be, profitable and up and running. I don't know, what, 3 to 6 months? So it takes a little more than that and a lot of layers to make it all come together. So yeah. What is the ISFJ's title? Like, what do they call that? Judicious, isn't it? The judge, judicious or something?
So, and the S might be stable, like stability, and maybe not a lot of
Actually,
surprises.
I think the S is for super and the U is for unique. The P is for perfection. I'm aging myself. Supersonic. But I'm not a very good rapper, just for the record. But um ENFP, I know, is the campaigner, and that is so true. Whenever I like something, I want everybody to adopt it and everybody to utilize it and be like me, which is kind of weird when you think about it, that I mean, whether it be chapstick or gyms or yeah, I'm a big
Or podcasts to listen to. Murdoch Murders.
Murdoch Murders podcast. Anyway, Murdoch Murders podcast is amazing. And the case is going on right now.
And what's the biggest challenge facing me in my role right now? And probably shortening the time it takes to source that perfect
Oh,
paralegal
yeah.
or legal assistant for our attorney clients. Every step of our vetting process is so important. I would not shortcut anything, but I do. We get a client that comes to us, generally they've tried many other avenues to hire the right person. They've
Right.
tried and failed at so many different ways. They've tried, a family friend, even family, and it hasn't worked out for one reason or another. So by the time they get to us, they're pretty frustrated. But obviously open-minded to remote. I would say my biggest challenge is just shortening that time to get somebody on board because we want to help them as soon as possible. So
That's the truth, because I know we're partners with a law clerk, and they oftentimes use the adage, dig your well before you're thirsty. And we try to do what we can to expedite things, but at the same time, yeah, those processes that we have honed, that you have largely honed, Patty, make for the most successful placements. So yeah. And while we can do transitions, we would love it more if there were no hiccups at all.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. But it is, process, not perfection. We want to get darn close, don't we?
oh, I know we do. And I always say it must be like Emerald when he serves his signature dish to people and they've never tried it. That kind of pride and excitement to have somebody try it is just the best. So,
Yeah, sure.
so what is one thing that, since this business venture has started, that you didn't expect?
A paycheck? Just kidding. No.
I saw that and I'm cracking up.
Probably the rapid growth of the business and how my role changed with it. Early on, I was supporting you and your previous business partner in anything, everything except for sales, right? And I was
Right?
like,
Yeah.
what do you need me to do today? So
Yeah.
really have foreseen how quickly things would change with your partnership change, and then with me taking on the operations of the business. It really just it kind of was the same, but grew
Yes.
to be big, just on a bigger scale. Jumped in and did whatever needed to be done so that you could focus on sales and developing the business and just kind of working behind you and getting the processes documented and laid out and working with insurance and all the things. That's really kind of what I love about my job. I like variety, and you never know what the day is going to bring. And
And
it's
you're
just
great at that.
surprising that it's been just over 2 years.
I know it is surprising that
Yeah.
it's been over 2 years, or, just a little bit over, because when I look back, it just seems like such a long time ago. One thing I didn't expect, how much discipline played a part. And because I struggle with that at times, and if it weren't for the checks and balances that we have in place, and it seems like they show up in different forms at different times. And for instance, I have a business coach now that I didn't have before. I have a sales consultant, which is really helpful. And we just have a number of things in place that help with that, so that, I can work at a higher capacity and help grow the company. And then
Yeah, you're really good at knowing what you need, evaluating, knowing what you need, and you find the support and you get it and move
yeah,
on. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah. Well, if I don't recognize it and stay ahead of that, it will negatively affect the team. And my concern in that regard is I've worked for companies that would get stuck, and that was really morale sucking. And I hated it. So I don't want to put other people through that. So that's my hope. And also, you and I have such a good rapport, and you share things that you see. What was one recently? Oh, my staffing ideas. You were like, no. We were going to check out a different avenue to look
Different
for,
source.
yeah,
And
look for talent. And
and I
Patty,
think the exact words were, "You're scaring me." Or something like that.
it was just a thought. It was just a thought. Yeah,
A passing
exactly.
thought. It was the end of the day.
And actually, that's another reason that I love serving attorneys. They are so typically direct. And when they need us to fix something, I can fix it much more quickly if they just tell me like it is. I'm from a big family, big Irish family, and
Mm.
people just are out with it. So it's really helpful when when clients or contractors speak to us in that same, certainly respectful but direct way, it gets
Yeah,
us to the fix much more quickly.
yeah, definitely. The authenticity,
Yeah, authenticity for
valuable.
sure.
What's one lesson your job has taught you that you think everyone should learn at some
Oh,
point in their life? Now you start. What?
no, I want you to start.
Okay. I definitely integrity is the most important attribute you can have. Being honest in all situations and being a person who can share the kind truth. And I will definitely
Yes,
be kind in front of the truth because let's face it, sometimes if you are honest and you have that integrity, you'll sleep at night.
that's right.
You'll never regret it. Yeah.
Yeah. Something that steers me is I don't want to get to the end of life. This is so, Debbie Downer, but I don't want to have regrets. And so, yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine conducting ourselves without integrity. That's huge, or I can't imagine that kind of regret. But also taking the leap to do this was something that I didn't realize that it was something I needed to do, but I did. And I'm so grateful that I did that. Things came together as they should have. I think my big lesson has been I can do this alone if I choose to, but I don't want to do this alone. Have you ever heard that you only will do it alone if you choose to? That's what I was trying to convey. Since I've gotten older, and I'm not old at all.
You are
Just to
not.
make that clear. And even my kids, I see them trying to do things themselves because they don't want to show the world or whomever that they need other people. But I think that that is just the big joke, is that we absolutely do need other people. That is one thing that I hope to impact with attorneys, that they're so used to doing things on their own, but it's not to their betterment. They are certainly more stressed, and their businesses could grow much more quickly if they put a hand out and allowed somebody else to give them a hand up, so to speak. So yeah, I'm the last of a big family, as I always say. So I probably was more apt to accept help, but I also was very prideful. I did not ever like to admit that I didn't know or that I could be wrong. And I realized that that is just stifling,
Yeah.
because honestly, the biggest lessons I've learned have been when I've made mistakes, and I make a ton of them. But fortunately, we have a lot of safety nets in place to make sure they're not serious ones. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, pride is a big one for me too.
Well, that was fun, Patty, and it's
It
official. If
was.
we're famous, today is the first day of the rest of my life. And I hope you have new big sunglasses, very Yoko Ono sunglasses,
I'll
because
work on that. Yeah.
wherever we go, we're going to be famous now. Everybody's going to say,
But this
there's
was a video, so how does that
oh,
work?
right. That's
Hey,
right. I did forget that.
details. Remember, I'm the detail person.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Meg. I will talk to you later.
Yes, you will. Bye.
Bye.